The pale green sun of Veyra Prime hung low on the horizon, casting a soft, shimmering light over the vast forests that stretched across the planet's surface. Tall trees with silver leaves swayed gently in the wind. Their roots burrowed deep into soil that had once been rich and fertile. Now, the forest was changing. Branches drooped with a subtle, almost invisible weakness, and the streams that used to ripple happily through the valleys were now reduced to thin threads of water, struggling to reach the rivers below. The Lumari, the intelligent inhabitants of this world, moved quietly through the forest, their eyes wide with concern. The Lumari were slender, graceful beings with luminous skin that reflected the colors around them. They had lived on Veyra Prime for countless generations. Their society built around harmony with nature. Their cities were woven into the trees, with bridges that stretched across the canopies and platforms that glimmered softly in the twilight. They had never needed more than what their planet could provide, and they had always believed their world would sustain them indefinitely. But now, something had shifted. In the city of Lirael, high above the forest floor, the council gathered in a chamber carved from living wood. The air hummed with quiet worry as the elders discussed the strange changes that had begun to take hold. "The rivers are weaker than ever," said Kael, his voice soft but firm. "The rain has become irregular. The plants are struggling, and even the smallest creatures are disappearing." Another elder, Cirella, nodded gravely. "We have tried everything we know. The old rituals, the care of the forests, even adjusting our energy flows to restore balance. Nothing has worked." A third council member, Tavin, leaned forward, his hands pressed together. "It is more than just the plants. The very air feels thinner. We can feel the strain in our bodies. Our children are weaker than they should be." The room fell silent. For the Lumari, silence was not just the absence of sound, it was the weight of fear pressing upon the heart. Their species had survived many challenges. But this was different. They were facing something they could not understand, and their usual connection to the natural rhythms of their world offered no answers. Finally, Kael spoke again. "We cannot face this alone. We must call for help." Calling for help had never been necessary before. The Lumari had always assumed that other civilizations existed, but contact had been minimal, and travel between stars had been impossible for them. Their attempts to communicate with distant planets had produced only static, echoes of a universe that seemed indifferent to their plight. Yet now, desperation overcame pride. In the central communication hall, a massive crystalline device stood, shimmering with faint blue light. The Lumari referred to it as the harmonic link, a tool that could send signals across vast distances if tuned correctly. Tavin approached it carefully, his hands trembling slightly as he activated the device. The crystals began to vibrate, sending waves of light and sound that resonated through the chamber. "Focus on survival," Tavin whispered. "Focus on help. Whoever hears us must understand our need." The harmonic link pulsed, and a signal began to travel outward, piercing the void of space. It carried no specific coordinates other than the location of Veyra Prime, and it carried no name of their people, only a simple plea: help. The Lumari hoped that some intelligent species, somewhere among the stars, would receive it. Far away, in the cold blackness of interstellar space, the signal arrived at the sensors of a human reconnaissance fleet. The humans were unlike any species the galaxy had ever seen. Known as the Deathworlders, they had earned their reputation for thriving in extreme and hostile environments, where others feared to tread. Their ships, sleek and functional, cut through space with ease, and their crew was highly trained, adaptable, and ready for any challenge. On board the lead ship, the SS Resolute, Captain Elara Quinn leaned over the display that now glowed with the Lumari signal. The human crew had seen many distress signals before, but something about this one was different. It was brief, desperate, yet filled with a kind of quiet hope. "Captain," said Lieutenant Rami, the ship's communications officer, "we're picking up a distress signal from an unknown species. Coordinates match a planet that appears habitable but unstable. They're asking for help." Elara studied the display. "No details beyond the plea?" Just the word help, ma'am, Rami replied. Elara smiled faintly. That's all we need. She turned to the crew. Prepare for planetary entry. Keep sensors sharp. We don't know what we'll find. But humans have a habit of turning impossible situations into success stories. Let's see what this world has in store for us. The crew moved efficiently. Drones were deployed to scan the planet's surface, assessing the environment. Atmospheric readings, terrain analysis, and biological scans filled the monitors. They discovered subtle but worrying patterns. Rivers flowing thin, oxygen levels slightly lower than expected, plants showing signs of stress. The humans nodded at each finding. To them, these were not obstacles, they were challenges to be overcome. Meanwhile, on Veyra Prime, the Lumari waited. Days passed as the harmonic link pulsed endlessly, hoping for a response. Every sunrise brought new anxiety. Birds no longer sang in the treetops. Even the wind seemed to hesitate. The elders paced the platforms, watching the riverbeds shrink and the soil crack. Then, one evening, the sky above the city shimmered with a strange light. A formation of ships descended from the stars, cutting through the sky with precision and grace. The humans had arrived. Their appearance was imposing, but not frightening. They moved with purpose, yet radiated a calm confidence that immediately reassured the Lumari. KL, Sorella, and Tavin stood together, watching the human fleet touch down. The ships settled gently among the trees, carefully avoiding damage. From the lead vessel, a ramp extended, and Captain Quinn stepped forward. Her uniform was simple, practical, and unlike anything the Lumari had seen, yet her presence carried authority and friendliness. She raised a hand in greeting. We received your signal. We're here to help. The Lumari exchanged glances. They had feared invaders, conquerors, or beings who might exploit their weakened state. But these humans seemed different. There was no arrogance, no demand, only an understanding that their planet's struggle was urgent, and that the humans possessed the skill and ingenuity to make a difference. Tavin stepped forward cautiously. You understand our need? Elara nodded. We do. Tell us everything about your world, your problems, and what you've tried so far. We will figure out the rest together. The Lumari led the humans through their forests, explaining the gradual decline of their ecosystem. Streams that had once sparkled were now muddied and weak. Trees had leaves that no longer shone with their usual luster. Small creatures scuttled quietly, hiding from the uncertainty of their changing home. The humans listened carefully, asking questions that revealed not just curiosity, but deep analytical thought. It seems the imbalance is not sudden, said Lieutenant Rami, pointing to readings on his tablet. The decline has been gradual, but accelerating. The atmosphere, water, and flora are all interconnected. We can work with this. The Lumari's fear began to shift toward hope. They had expected words of pity or a plan that would fail. Instead, they saw humans already imagining solutions. As night fell, the forest seemed to breathe again, but this time in cautious anticipation. The Lumari watched the humans set up temporary labs, small workshops, and observation posts. The humans moved with quiet efficiency, their technology unobtrusive yet effective. They did not uproot the trees or disturb the natural beauty of the planet. They worked with it, not against it. Kale turned to Sorella, whispering, I think we may have found more than help. We may have found allies who can teach us how to survive when survival seemed impossible. Sorella nodded, her eyes reflecting the soft glow of the human instruments. Perhaps they are more than we ever imagined. High above, Captain Quinn looked at the stars, thinking not of conquest or fame, but of challenges waiting to be met. Veyra Prime was tough, unpredictable, and beautiful. It needed care, creativity, and resilience. And humans thrived where others faltered. The night passed, quiet and filled with the subtle sounds of life. Somewhere, deep in the forests, a small stream began to murmur, a little more confidently, as if sensing that help had arrived. The trees, though still tired, seemed to sway with a renewed rhythm, and the Lumari, for the first time in many cycles, allowed themselves to imagine a future in which their world would live again, not just survive, but flourish. The stage was set. Humans had arrived. The Lumari's plea had been answered, and a story of collaboration, ingenuity, and hope was about to unfold. The morning light slowly spread across the forests of Veyra Prime, touching the silver leaves and returning a soft glow to the world as if encouraging it to wake from a long, quiet sleep. The Lumari gathered near the open clearing where the human fleet had landed, watching with curiosity as the humans moved around with calm purpose. The previous night had felt different from the others, lighter, less heavy, and the Lumari could not deny that this feeling had grown stronger after the humans' arrival. Captain Alara Quinn stood at the center of the clearing, her tablet projecting floating holographic displays around her. Data from drones, atmospheric sensors, and satellite scans filled the air in soft blue images. The humans studied each detail with practiced discipline. Around her, members of her crew set up more instruments. Drones buzzed gently through the forest canopy, sending back visual and environmental readings. Engineers unfolded small devices that scanned the soil and air. Biologists examined plant samples, comparing them to healthy models stored in their databases. The Lumari watched every movement with quiet fascination. Their own technology was elegant but gentle, focused on harmony rather than analysis. Human technology felt different, precise, adaptable, and designed to act quickly. Tavin approached Captain Quinn carefully. "You have begun studying already," he said, his voice soft. Ilara smiled warmly. "Yes. The sooner we understand what is happening, the sooner we can help your world recover." Sorella stepped closer, her luminous skin reflecting the morning light. "We worry that your people may find our problem too great. Our forests have fed us, sheltered us, guided us for generations. But now, it feels as if Veyra itself is growing tired." Ilara looked at the forest around them. "Every world changes," she said, "some slowly, some suddenly. But humans have learned that change does not mean loss. It means adaptation. If your world is changing, we will learn how to adapt with it." Sorella tilted her head, intrigued. "Is that how humans survive? By adapting?" Ilara nodded. "Always. Humans lived on a very difficult world. Harsh storms, shifting climates, unpredictable nature. But we grew stronger not by resisting change, but by learning to move with it." The Lumari exchanged thoughtful glances. Their own society avoided change as much as possible, believing stability would keep their world balanced. Now, that belief had brought them to the edge of crisis. Meanwhile, a group of human engineers walked toward the riverside. The stream there was barely more than a thin trickle, moving sluggishly through cracked soil. They knelt beside it, dipping instruments into the water. Lieutenant Rami scanned the readings on his device. "The water is evaporating faster due to atmospheric thinning," Rami explained. "But the change is gradual, not sudden." Kale listened carefully. "Can it be reversed?" "Not instantly," Rami replied. "But we can stabilize it. Humans are good at protecting water. We've done it many times on our own worlds." Kale seemed relieved just hearing that a solution existed. Nearby, another group of humans studied a cluster of trees. The leaves were still a beautiful silver, but lacked the shimmer they usually had. Biologist Dr. Mara gently touched the bark, while her scanner recorded its readings. "The trees are strong," she said to the Lumari who stood with her. "They're not dying, they're struggling, they need support. With a little help, they can recover." The Lumari's eyes widened with a spark of hope. "What kind of help?" one of them asked. "Moisture regulation, soil restoration, and pollination assistance," Mara replied. "Nothing too heavy. Your world has the ability to heal itself. It just needs a push." The humans continued working through the morning, collecting every piece of information they could. When they finally gathered again near the clearing, Captain Quinn projected a large hologram that showed the whole planet. It rotated slowly, glowing with soft blue highlights where the humans had mapped environmental changes. Ilara pointed toward the central forests, showing areas in yellow. Your planet is experiencing a slow imbalance, not a collapse. The air composition is shifting, which affects the plants and water cycle. But the important thing is that it is not irreversible. The Lumari leaned in, listening with full attention. Tavin asked, "Can it be fixed?" "Yes," Ilara said calmly. "But it will take cooperation. We will need to work together, your knowledge of the land, and our tools and methods." Sorella smiled gently. "We have long believed nature corrects itself if left alone." Ilara nodded. "Nature can correct itself, but sometimes, helping it along is not interference, it is partnership." The idea sounded new but comforting to the Lumari. The humans began their next phase, testing solutions. They started by installing small atmospheric stabilizers in the forest. These devices were not large or intrusive. They looked like small metallic plants with softly glowing petals. When activated, they began circulating and balancing local air to support plant life. The Lumari watched in silence as the devices blended into the environment with surprising grace. The humans had specifically designed them to avoid harming any part of the forest. Next, the humans tested soil enhancement modules. They placed tiny capsules around the base of weak trees. The capsules dissolved slowly, spreading nutrients and moisture-retaining particles that would help the soil stay healthy during weather shifts. Kale observed the process and said softly, "Your technology. It works with the world, not against it." Ilara nodded. "Humanity learned long ago that if we do not respect nature, we lose. The only way is to work alongside it." Later in the afternoon, the forest became alive with movement again. Human drones designed to mimic small insects fluttered around flowers, helping with pollination. Their wings sparkled gently as they hovered from plant to plant. The Lumari gathered to watch, amazed. "We used to have creatures like these," Tavin said sadly. "But they became fewer each year." "Doctor," Mara smiled. "Once the environment stabilizes, your natural pollinators may return. These drones are just here to help until then." The Lumari felt something warming inside them, something they had not felt for many cycles. Hope. Still, not everything was easy. As the humans expanded their tests, some areas did not respond as expected. Soil remained dry in one sector, despite the capsules. Another region had plants that resisted recovery. The humans did not panic. Instead, they observed the patterns, adapted their methods, and tried new approaches. "Your people never give up quickly," Sorella observed as she watched a team adjust one of the stabilizers. Ilara laughed softly. "Giving up is easy. But humans prefer solving the problem. It is how we have survived on our own world." The Lumari admired this mindset deeply. By evening, the first visible improvements appeared. The river near the clearing, once a weak trickle, flowed a little stronger. The change was small, but noticeable. The trees near the human soil modules stood straighter, their leaves brighter. Some even regained a faint shimmer. Lumari children watched in wonder. They touched the leaves, smiling as the tree's energy felt warmer under their small hands. The elders looked on with quiet amazement. For so long, they had believed their world was slipping beyond their reach. Now they saw evidence that recovery was possible. As the humans prepared to analyze their day's results, the Lumari invited them to a communal platform high in the trees. It was a peaceful, glowing space with woven branches and soft, luminescent patterns on the floor. The Lumari offered fruit and nectar gathered from the parts of the forest still thriving. The humans accepted gratefully. "We do not usually share meals with those from other stars," Kale said. "But you have shown care for our world. It is only right we show care in return." The humans smiled. Sharing food felt like friendship, not just cooperation. During the meal, the Lumari asked countless questions about Earth, about human cities, oceans, mountains, and the many challenges humanity had faced. "Your world must be strong," Sorella said. Ilara nodded gently. "Very strong, and very unpredictable. But we learned that unpredictability does not break us. It shapes us." The Lumari listened closely. They realized humans did not survive because their world was gentle. They survived because they embraced difficulty, turning every obstacle into something they could learn from. Before the humans returned to their ships for the night, Captain Quinn stood with the Lumari elders at the edge of the platform. The sky above them shimmered with soft violet stars. "We will continue tomorrow," Alara said. "Your world is responding. Slowly, but it is responding." Taven bowed his head slightly. "You have given us hope again." Alara smiled warmly. "Hope is the first step. The next step is action, and we will take that together." As night settled over Veyra Prime, the humans' equipment glowed softly in the darkness. The forest whispered gently in the wind, as if aware of the new energy flowing through it. Streams murmured a little louder, leaves rustled with renewed vigor, even the air felt slightly fuller. The Lumari went to rest knowing that, for the first time in a long while, they were not alone. Their world had help from beings who understood struggle, change, and resilience better than anyone, and tomorrow, their work would continue. The next morning arrived with a soft golden light spreading across the forests of Veyra Prime. Dew gathered on the silver leaves, glistening like tiny crystals. The Lumari could feel that the air was a little richer than the day before. Even the breeze felt smoother, carrying a faint hint of moisture that had not been present for many cycles. The humans were already awake and working. Their camp had grown into a small, organized network of research stations. Devices blinked gently. Drones hummed quietly through the canopy, and screens displayed new data gathered overnight. Captain Alara Quinn stood near the main console reviewing atmospheric readings. Lieutenant Rami joined her, holding a small tablet. "Moisture levels have risen by 2% in the valley," he said. "It is not much, but it is progress." Alara nodded. "Slow improvement is still improvement. This planet wants to heal. We just have to guide it." Taven, who had arrived early to observe the humans, stepped closer. "Your work? It brings change so quickly. We never expected this." Alara smiled. "Nature responds to support. We are not forcing anything. We are only helping your world use its own strength." The Lumari admired the human confidence. It was a gentle confidence. Not boastful, but grounded in experience. Humans did not see problems as doom. They saw them as puzzles, waiting to be solved. That morning, the humans prepared to expand their work to the outer regions of the forest where conditions were worse. The Lumari guided them through sky bridges and vine-wrapped pathways. The journey took them to an area where the trees were thinner and weaker, and where the ground had begun to harden from lack of moisture. Dr. Mara knelt to inspect a plant that looked wilted and pale. She placed a small scanner beside it and studied the readings. "This plant is still alive," she said, "but it cannot take enough nutrients from the soil." Kale looked worried. "Our people have always cared for these plants. It hurts us to see them fading." Mara placed a comforting hand on the tree trunk. "It will recover. We'll give it what it needs." The humans placed soil capsules around the roots, adjusting the mixture based on the readings. They then set up shade regulation panels, thin, flexible sheets that captured sunlight, and redistributed it gently to avoid overheating the weakened plants. As these panels activated, the light around the trees softened. The Lumari gasped softly. They had never seen sunlight controlled so elegantly. "How does it work?" Sorella asked. Rami explained. "We mimic natural shade with materials that share sunlight evenly. It helps plants that are too weak to face direct brightness." Sorella nodded slowly. So simple, yet so effective. The Lumari realized that the humans' greatest strength was not just their technology, but their ability to simplify problems and find straightforward solutions. While Dr. Mara and Rami worked on the plants, Captain Quinn and her engineering team studied the river branch flowing nearby. The water was slow and shallow, moving as if tired. Alara crouched beside the riverbank, letting her hand drift through the cool water. "The river wants to flow," she said, "but it is losing strength before it reaches the valley." Taven looked confused. "How can a river lose strength?" "Rivers depend on their sources," Alara explained. "If the water upstream is blocked or weakened, the whole line suffers." Rami deployed small floating sensors that gently drifted along the water, collecting data on flow speed, purity, and temperature. "It is not pollution," Rami said after a few moments. "It is evaporation. The atmosphere is too thin in this region." Ilara stood. "Then, we will create moisture pockets." Kale blinked in surprise. "Moisture pockets?" Ilara smiled. "You will see." The humans brought out mist-generating devices, small, leaf-shaped tools that released a soft, cool mist into the air. When they activated them, the dry air around the river shifted. A light, refreshing fog shimmered above the water, cooling it and slowing evaporation. The Lumari watched, fascinated. Even the trees near the river seemed to perk up as droplets settled on their leaves. Children from the nearby Lumari settlement wandered in curiously, their eyes wide as they reached out to touch the mist. It clung to their fingers in tiny sparkling beads, making them laugh with delight. For the first time in a long while, the forest sounded alive not with worry, but with curiosity and hope. By midday, the humans decided to demonstrate another project: the pollination system. The Lumari followed them deeper into the forest, to a grove filled with delicate flowers that had not bloomed fully in many cycles. Lieutenant Rami released a group of small drones. Their wings were transparent and shaped like petals. They fluttered through the air with soft, musical tones. "These are pollinator drones," he said. "They help plants that rely on small creatures to grow and reproduce." The drones moved gently among the flowers, collecting and distributing pollen. Within minutes, some of the flowers began to open slightly, responding to the sudden increase in support. Sorella covered her mouth in amazement. "It is like watching life return before our eyes." Mara nodded. "Nature responds quickly when the conditions improve." The Lumari's respect for the humans deepened with every passing hour. What they had once feared as the legendary Deathworlders, beings from a harsh and dangerous world, now seemed more like quiet healers, using strength not to dominate, but to revive. As the day continued, the humans and Lumari worked side by side. The Lumari learned how to operate the mist generators, how to read basic environmental data, and how to place nutrient capsules at the right spots. They adapted quickly, guided by the humans' patient teaching. "You learn fast," Ilara told Kale, as he adjusted a stabilizer device with ease. Kale smiled shyly. "Your methods, they make sense. They feel natural, even though they are new." "That is the goal," Ilara said. "Solutions should become part of the world, not stand apart from it." Later in the afternoon, a small challenge appeared. One of the stabilizers began blinking with a yellow warning light. It meant the air composition in that region was fluctuating again. Rami checked the readings. The wind changed direction. "It is carrying drier air from the hills." Tavin looked concerned. "Is this a setback?" Ilara shook her head. "Not a setback. Just a change. And change is something we can handle." She and her team quickly recalibrated the stabilizer, adjusting its intake settings so it could balance the new air mixture. Within minutes, the yellow light turned green. Sorella watched with admiration. "Your people do not fear change." Ilara smiled. "Change is natural. Humans learned to accept it long ago." By the time the sun began to descend, the forest was glowing again. The air felt thicker, healthier. The trees stood taller. The river flowed with a clearer sound. The flowers opened wider than they had in many cycles. The Lumari gathered at the top of a high platform overlooking the valley. From there, they could see the humans' work spread across the landscape like tiny lights of hope. Tavin spoke softly. "Our world is responding. It listens to your guidance." Ilara nodded. "Not my guidance, our collaboration. You know your world. We only know how to solve problems. Together, we can find balance." Sorella said, "For cycles we tried to avoid change, thinking it was dangerous. But perhaps adaptation is the way forward." Ilara looked out at the forest. "Adaptation is life. Nothing stays the same forever. Growth comes from learning, adjusting, and moving forward." The Lumari felt the truth of her words deep inside. Their society had been peaceful and harmonious, but also stagnant. They never prepared for different conditions, and now, with the help of the humans, they were discovering a new philosophy not of fear, but of resilience. That evening, the Lumari invited the humans to a special gathering under the glowing canopy. It was not a celebration, but a moment of gratitude. Lumari musicians played soft melodies using instruments made from living crystal. Their music echoed through the trees like gentle wind chimes. One Lumari elder stepped forward and spoke to the humans. "You came from far away. You answered a message with no details, no promises. Yet you came without hesitation. You helped without asking for anything in return. For this, we offer our thanks." Alara bowed slightly. "Humans help because we know what it feels like to need help. Our world shaped us to survive together, not alone." The Lumari smiled warmly. They understood now why the galaxy whispered stories of the Deathworlders, humans who thrived in the harshest environments, not through force, but through creativity, cooperation, and persistence. As the night settled in, the humans continued to monitor the forest, and the Lumari rested with a new sense of comfort. Their world was healing, and they were learning to heal with it. Tomorrow, there would be more work, more adjustments, more discoveries. But for the first time in many cycles, the future felt bright. The Deathworlder fleet had brought not fear, but hope, and Veyra Prime was ready to rise again. Morning light touched Veyra Prime like a gentle promise. The silver leaves of the trees shimmered brighter than they had in many cycles. Streams moved with purpose, their waters clearer and fuller. The air carried a soft richness that made every breath feel lighter. The Lumari could sense the change deep within the land and within themselves. For the first time in a long time, their world felt alive again. The humans were already awake and working, their small camp a network of organized activity. Drones floated above the forest, quietly monitoring the rivers, trees, and soil. Sensors measured air quality and moisture. Engineers adjusted devices, improving their performance based on the previous day's observations. Captain Alara Quinn walked alongside Kale and Sorella as they examined one of the recovering riverbanks. "Your river is flowing much better now," she said. "It still has work to do, but it is well on the way." Kale smiled, letting his gaze follow the sparkling water. "It feels alive. You have taught us that life can be restored when we work with it, not against it." Alara nodded. "Humans have always had to find balance with the world around them. Your planet will thrive if you continue to guide it the way we have started." Nearby, Dr. Mara and Lieutenant Rami observed a grove of trees where the soil capsules had been placed. The trees' roots dug deeper into the earth, leaves glimmered in the sunlight, and small flowers began to bloom again. Some of the Lumari children ran through the grove, laughing as the plants seemed to respond to their excitement. Sorella watched them, her eyes soft. "It is as if your presence has awakened the land." Mara smiled. "Not our presence alone. Your world has the ability to heal. We only help it remember how." As the day progressed, the humans expanded their work to other regions of the forest that had been most affected by environmental stress. They carefully mapped every change and made small adjustments. Mist generators created local humidity pockets. Pollinator drones assisted plants that had lost their natural helpers. Soil capsules spread nutrients evenly. The Lumari worked closely with the humans, learning each technique and understanding the reason behind every action. They marveled at how humans could take simple principles and turn them into effective solutions. It was a lesson in creativity, persistence, and collaboration. One area near the eastern cliffs had been particularly difficult. The wind there was strong, and the soil was dry and rocky. The humans carefully analyzed the terrain. "We need to create anchors for the plants," Dr. Mara explained. "Strong roots will help them survive the wind while they regain strength." Tavan, watching intently, asked, "Can plants grow in such harsh conditions?" "They can," Mara replied. "If the right support is provided." The Lumari observed as humans installed flexible root supports and moisture-retaining capsules. The trees seemed to lean slightly into the wind, but the adjustments allowed them to remain strong. By evening, the cliffs had small patches of greenery, evidence that the forest was slowly reclaiming the land. Meanwhile, Captain Quinn and her engineers monitored the rivers from above. Using small aerial drones, they guided water flow from the stronger streams toward the weaker ones. Slowly but steadily, the rivers began to balance. Pools formed in areas that had been dry for cycles. Fish and small water creatures started returning, attracted by the renewed current. Kale could hardly contain his amazement. "I have never imagined our rivers flowing so freely again," Elara smiled. "It is a matter of patience, observation, and careful guidance. Your world has always had the ability. It just needed direction." By midday, the humans gathered all the Lumari for a demonstration of how to maintain the improvements themselves. They showed simple methods to monitor water levels, adjust soil support, and track plant health. The Lumari learned quickly, realizing that they could continue the work without the humans' constant presence. Sorella approached Elara with gratitude. "You have done more than help our forests. You have taught us how to care for them ourselves." Elara placed a hand gently on Sorella's arm. "That is the goal. Technology and guidance are temporary. Knowledge lasts. Your world will thrive because you now understand the principles, not just the tools." In the late afternoon, Captain Quinn organized a small survey flight to observe the changes across the wider forest. The Lumari elders joined her, looking down from the air as their planet slowly came back to life. They saw rivers flowing stronger, trees standing taller, flowers blooming more freely, and small wildlife returning to areas they had abandoned. "This is more than restoration," Kale said softly. "It is a renewal." Elara nodded. "Yes. Your world will continue to evolve. But now it has the support it needs. You can face the future with confidence." Back on the ground, children ran through the recovering forests, collecting small glowing fruits and learning to interact with nature without disturbing it. The humans smiled, watching the Lumari take ownership of their world's revival. As evening settled over Veyra Prime, the humans gathered near the central clearing for one final meeting with the elders. The sky was painted with hues of violet and gold, reflecting on the rivers and leaves, making the forest look like a world of light and possibility. Kale stepped forward and spoke, his voice filled with emotion. "Your people came from far away, from a world we had never seen, to help us when we were at our weakest. You did not just heal our forests, you healed our hope," Sorella added. "And you taught us that change is not to be feared. Adaptation is strength, and cooperation is wisdom." Elara stepped forward. "Humans survive because we embrace challenges, not because we avoid them. Your world has the same strength, it only needed a reminder. You have learned to apply your knowledge, and that is more important than any device we brought." The Lumari bowed their heads in respect. For generations, they had believed that survival meant maintaining stability. Now they understood that life was not just about enduring, it was about learning, adapting, and working together. Captain Quinn turned to her crew. "We will stay a little longer to make sure the systems run smoothly. But soon, your people will carry on without us. You have everything you need to protect your forests and rivers, and your land will thrive." The Lumari looked around at the forest, their hearts light. For cycles, they had feared the loss of their home. Now, it felt alive, stronger, and full of promise. As the humans prepared to depart, Tavin approached Elara. "Will you return if we need help?" he asked. Elara smiled. "If you ever need guidance, you can send a signal. But remember, your people are now capable. You can face challenges without fear." The fleet slowly lifted into the sky, shining softly as it ascended among the stars. The Lumari watched in awe, seeing the human ships fade into the distance. Even after they left, their presence lingered in the air, in the streams, and in the trees. Kale turned to Sorella. "We have not only survived, but we have learned, and we will pass this knowledge forward, for generations to come." Sorella nodded. "Our world is stronger than ever, and our friendship with the humans will guide us in ways we cannot yet imagine." After Endar P is live. That night, the Lumari gathered at the top of their highest platform. The forest glowed gently below, reflecting the renewed life of Veyra Prime. Children slept peacefully in their homes, rivers whispered in the distance, and trees swayed as if dancing in gratitude. Tavin whispered to Kale, "We will remember this day. Not just because our world was healed, but because we learned how to heal with wisdom and courage." Kale smiled. "Yes, humanity has shown us the value of resilience, cooperation, and hope, and we will honor that lesson." Far above, the stars shone brightly over Veyra Prime. Somewhere in the vast galaxy, humans traveled between worlds, carrying their skills, their wisdom, and their spirit. They did not conquer, they adapted, they assisted, and they inspired. And on Veyra Prime, a new chapter had begun. The Lumari would care for their forests and rivers with knowledge, patience, and courage. Their world was alive, thriving, and full of promise. The Deathworlders had come and gone, but their legacy remained. A world restored, a people empowered, and a message clear across the stars. Humans could face any challenge, and in doing so, they could awaken the best in others. The forests shimmered in the moonlight, rivers sparkled, and the wind carried the whispers of life returning. Veyra Prime would flourish once again, and the bond between humans and Lumari would echo for cycles to come. It was a beginning, not just of restoration, but of hope, knowledge, and friendship that spanned the stars.